for the iwi and hapu o te rohe o te Wairoa. It is our responsibility on behalf of our iwi and hapu to manage the redress that will be received as part of our settlement with the Crown. In August this year, we held our first round of engagement hui across 9 locations in Aotearoa. Our trustees sought your feedback on our values, aspirations and principles, and on proposed concepts for how our representation and asset ownership structure could look in the future. It was great to see so many whānau participating, and new faces too, with many tuning in to watch the live-streamed videos and sending us their thoughts online. We received invaluable feedback from you during this time, which has shaped our trustees' mahi over the last 2 months. Now we're coming back to you to kōrero some more. Today's hui is an opportunity to hear more about the feedback you have provided so far and to talk through our refined values, aspirations and principles and models for representation and asset ownership. We want to know if we have heard you correctly and if you agree with the proposals we present. What you tell us during this hui is critical to help shape the thinking on our future representative structure and about asset ownership arrangements. The presentation covers the key points in your information booklet. Following this presentation, we will have 30 minutes for you to ask any questions you may have. Ka tahi ka kaputi tātou, so you can meet and talk to your representatives and our support teams who are here today. Also, if you are not yet a registered member of Tātou Tātou o te Wairoa, we can help you register today. We are back on a hīkoi across Aotearoa, holding our second round of hui in Wairoa, Ahuriri, Te Whanganui Tara, Rotorua, Kirikiriroa, Tāmaki Makaurau, Te Papaioia, Waihōpai, me o Tautahi. We are presenting exactly the same information at each hui, which will cover a recap of our August hui and what we asked of you, a look at the feedback we received from whānau, our aspirations, values and principles considering the refined approach, our recommended approach for representation, 2 models as options for our asset management. Your feedback is important. We want to know we have heard you correctly and if we're on the right track. What you tell us today will directly impact on the models our trustees recommend to you for voting on next year. Remember, it's you, our people, who ultimately decide on the future of Tātou Tātou. We will now focus on the areas where we want your feedback, thoughts and questions. Firstly, your aspirations, values and principles. In 2012, a series of workshops were held to identify our aspirations as we work towards the settlement. At our August engagement hui, we asked you to tell us whether these aspirations were still relevant to you today. These are important as they will help to guide Tātou Tātou o te Wairoa as we move forward. When providing feedback, we ask you to consider: do the aspirations, values and principles still fit for our whānau, hapu and iwi? How would you like us to operate? Do these best reflect your aspirations, values and principles? What might be missing? We will now look at the aspirations, values and principles which have been updated and refined to reflect what you have told us. Our updated and refined vision is Tātou Tātou o te Wairoa, he iwi motuhake, he tangata oranga ake. Our updated and refined aspirations centre around the well-being of our iwi, hapu and whānau. They are social well-being, restoration of health and social conditions for our iwi and hapu, cultural well-being, restoration and protection of the cultural identity of our iwi and hapu, environmental well-being, revitalisation of the local environment and restoration of our role as kaitiaki of our natural resources, economic well-being, rebuilding an economic base for our iwi and hapu and reassertion of our tino rangatiratanga. Our refined values and principles focus on the areas that you told us are most meaningful to you. They are wairuatanga, fostering our unique features of mana whenua and tangata whenua. Rangatiratanga, your right to be the architect of your own future and development. Manaakitanga, respecting, nurturing and caring for others. Kaitiakitanga, guardians of ngā taonga tuku iho, te taiao. Whanaungatanga, our kinship is determined through blood and whāngai, whakapapa. These refined aspirations, values and principles aim to reflect the feedback you have given us. So, have we heard you correctly? Do these aspirations, values and principles reflect the way you believe tātou should be guided in our mahi? E anga whakamua ana te waka, forging a new path. We will now look at the refined models for our future representation, and 2 models as options for our asset management structure. What we asked of you. At our previous engagement hui, we presented you with 3 asset and representation concepts. There were devolution, whakatoha-toha, collaboration, mahitahi, amalgamation, kotahitanga. Each of these concepts could be applied separately to assets and representation arrangements, or parts taken from each to create a new model. They reflect possibilities at each end of the scale and a middle option. In August, you told us what you thought of these concepts and why, what aspects you like and what parts you don't like. We have listened to your views and brought them together to develop a recommended representation approach and 2 new models for the future structure of tātou for you to consider. A representation approach could be 7 rōpū, like the existing kāhui groups, but based on rohe and tipuna. The new models for you to consider are Model 1, whakatōpū, consolidated ownership, shared management of assets for the benefit for all. Model 2, kanoro, diversified ownership. Rōpū owns some assets and tātou owns some assets. We will now talk more about each of these options. From your feedback, many whānau want to continue on the path that we have forged through the settlement process so far, being grouped by kāhui or clusters of hapū for representation, then coming together under one umbrella group. After considering your feedback, the initial trustees recommend the following representation approach for tātou o te Wairoa Trust. 7 rōpū, like the existing kāhui groups, but based on rohe and tipuna. This means that each rōpū will include hapū that whakapapa to that tipuna, and marae that are based within that rohe. Each rōpū would elect its own 2 representatives, including at least 1 ahikā as trustees for tātou. You would choose 1 rōpū for the purposes of voting to elect your trustees. You can also list other rōpū as part of your registration with tātou if you have a whakapapa connection to 1 or more hapū within those other rōpū. We also need to decide if there should be the option for a rōpū to leave tātou o te Wairoa if it decided that it wanted to be independent. If our people want this to be able to happen, the tātou trust deed would need to be amended. This would be done as part of the vote early next year on the structure of tātou o te Wairoa Trust. We have outlined a process in your information booklet on how this would work. The key principles are that high voting thresholds ensure fairness and a robust process. All adult registered members of tātou would need to vote to approve the framework, as this ensures transparency for all. A rōpū could not trigger an exit at any time. They would have to do it within a certain period so tātou has certainty going forward. If a rōpū becomes independent, they would no longer be a part of tātou tātou, not have any trustee representatives on tātou tātou, and remain connected to tātou tātou through a formal agreement for cultural redress and rights to purchase RFR land. This is your choice, whānau. If you think it is important for rōpū to have this option, we can include it in the special resolutions that you will vote on early next year. Now we will look a bit closer at the models for our asset ownership arrangements. All this information is contained in the information booklet from page 18 onwards. The first model is whakatōpu, consolidated ownership. In this scenario, tātou tātou owns and manages all assets for the benefit of all the iwi and hapū o te rohe o te Wairua. Everyone shares in the whole of the assets, so no asset is given to a specific rōpū, and all ups and downs in performance of assets are shared. The second model is kano rau, diversified ownership. Here, each rōpū would own some of their own assets and be responsible for those. Tātou tātou o te Wairua Trust also owns some assets. Rōpū and tātou tātou can engage in a management policy to share administration of commercial assets. Let's now look at the key features of the two models. Remember, these models are based on your feedback and are not final. Your feedback today will help shape these further. We'll start with whakatōpu, consolidated ownership. Key features of this model are tātou tātou owns all the deferred selection properties, the Patunamu and Wharerata forest interests, and any right of refusal land purchased in the future. Tātou tātou manages these assets for the benefit of all. All ups and downs in performance of assets are shared, as are all risks, costs and administration. Everyone shares in the whole of the assets. Tātou tātou distributes profits to rōpū annually, reinvests income for future generations and funds operations. Grouping assets will create economies of scale, guided by collective decision-making. In comparison, kano rau, diversified ownership, means that ownership of assets is shared. On settlement, rōpū could be allocated a percentage of all cash and assets, with the remaining cash and assets pooled in tātou tātou. Rōpū and tātou tātou can engage in a management policy to share administration of commercial assets. Under this model, profits and losses are incurred by the rōpū from the assets that they own. For commercial properties, a rōpū will need to instruct tātou tātou to exercise a right to purchase a deferred selection property or future RFR site. Dispute resolution processes will be put in place if rōpū cannot agree on ownership of certain assets. Cultural redress relationships remain with tātou tātou. So, those are the two refined models. To see these in more detail, go to pages 18 to 21 of your information booklet. It's important to understand that what you have seen today is not final. We are simply seeking your feedback to determine if we have heard you correctly in August, and if we've got it right. Today we want your feedback on our aspirations, values and principles, our representation approach, our two asset management models. Let's now recap. We are holding the second series of Engagement Hui to check we've heard you correctly and seek your feedback on the refined models. In February next year, we plan on holding a ratification process on the special resolutions required by our trust deed, where we will ask you to vote on our potential asset and representation arrangements. What we recommend to you then will be heavily influenced by what you tell us today. We anticipate that in early to mid-2018, our settlement legislation is likely to pass its final reading and become law. That will bring an end to over 30 years of mahi on this important kaupapa. However, it is just the beginning of our new era. By the end of August 2018, we will need to complete the amendments to the trust deed by special resolution, and in October there will be new trustee elections. It's an incredibly busy but exciting time for our whānau, and we are grateful you are here on this journey with us. You can provide feedback on the feedback form at the back of your information booklet or through our online feedback form on the Tātou website or on our Facebook page. Remember, it is you, our people, who decide on the final asset and representation arrangements. In 2018, all adult registered members will have the opportunity to vote on the special resolutions. So please check with whānau to ensure they're registered. If not, tell them to head to our website now. We'll now have questions and answers. Before we do, we have the following ground rules. Please respect others and remain quiet so that their questions can be heard clearly. Please identify yourself when you speak so we can record your name. Please keep questions related to the aspirations, values and principles, the recommended representation approach, or the 2 asset ownership models outlined today. For other matters, please talk to one of your representatives. Nō reira, from all of us here at Tātou o Te Wairoa Trust, ngā mihi nui kia koutou katoa. Mauri ora.
Well, thank you, whānau, for listening. That's the end of our presentation. It's a reflection of what's in the booklet. Just to put a high-level context regarding where we're at. It's a very difficult discussion to have about what we do with the settlement. Not a lot of entities, PSG entities, iwis, give that opportunity to their members from the outset to have that input, have that discussion, have that determination on what the future next 20, 30, 40, 50 years is going to look like. So this is a unique opportunity, but also comes with unique opportunity, comes with responsibility. And responsibility, we go through this process and have a fair, transparent, robust process to make sure our members are informed of the feedback, have the opportunity to provide feedback, and then comment on the direction or the recommendations that the trustees come up with. So these discussions are not easy ones to have at a trustee level. They're probably not easy to have at the whānau, hapu level as well, but they are inevitably discussions that we'll need to have regarding the asset arrangements and the governance representation. So it's just that the trustees feel that it needs to happen now rather than wait until the settlement's landed, and use this time up to do that and have these discussions and go around the motu and engage with our members. But key also, our members need to get registered. We've got around about 7,000 currently registered. Look at here on the main street, Tainui started off in 1995 with 22,000. Now they're up to 68,000. So those are the kind of aspirations. We need to threefold our registration. But as long as we get in early and get as many members registered as early, get them participating in this process as well. So I encourage everyone here today to go home, make sure your whānau are registered, encourage those who are not registered to participate, and make sure that they are involved in this process and they're informed of what's going on. It's a unique opportunity, and be part of this and to guide the direction for the future, what happens with the settlement. So that's where we're at. Just starting through the Q&A stuff, we'll look at the values, our aspirations, values and principles. We kind of came together with feedback from our members, as well as we consulted our kaumātua kāhui regarding that particular aspect. And where we landed was a section where we took all that feedback and then started to group those values into 5 areas, because it made it quite easier to do that. And then by doing that, we're able to measure ourselves against those values that we came together. Originally, our vision was quite waffly or hiri-feri, healthy, wealthy, tangata whenua. Kind of narrowed it down a little bit more, created a bit more detail behind it there. So we're just moving through. Has anyone got any particular questions? We're starting off with the values, aspirations and principles. This is kind of the non-controversial side of that stuff. It's easy to to include. We haven't had a lot of feedback, particularly around that aspect as such, but we took everyone's feedback and tried to shape it and mould it into something that's more reflective of our times today. So I'll just hand it over to anyone who wants to ask any questions about values, aspirations and principles. Do you think that's kind of where we should be heading, those 5 particular areas? Under those 5 particular areas sit a whole lot of other values and principles that encompass that as well. So we're just trying to find it and chuck it up on the screen for you so you can. So there's our vision. The trustees came up at the start of the year. That was the vision. Iwi mō te hake he tangata orangake. And we moved into the well-beings. These 4 well-beings came from back in the day with the tira. I think, are they still relevant? Are there other well-beings that we need to look at? So far, currently looked at is whole water. Should be a separate well-being, or is that included under social? Anyone else have questions about well-being? It's one of us. There's a whole lot of other aspects that can fit underneath within that context.
I'm going to have to ask you to speak into this so that Whānau kind of hear your response.
And these are our key 5 areas of values and principles. Remember back in August we came to a lot of other kupu that sit within those particular areas.
Kia ora, ko Brendan Tangiora, taku ingoa. Yeah, I'll look at these 4 aspects that you've got here, quadruple bottom line, they're called. And that's pretty cool. There has been some research that's fallen out of United Nations stuff to do with what you're talking about, whole water, health and well-being, something separate from social well-being. Yeah, it's worth looking into splitting it a bit. But I see that you've bundled in there with the economic well-being, one of those principles and values, tino rangatiratanga. For me, any treaty settlement, the key aspect of that is tino rangatiratanga. The thing that we've lost, the thing that we're fighting the most in these settlements is to regain that. Unfortunately, you know, the treaty was signed between the Crown and the Hapu of New Zealand. But the Crown has set the rules, and they've said we will only settle with iwi. So we've had to construct iwi to deal with them, and they will only deal on land matters. They're not dealing with tino rangatiratanga. So we've been dished out some money. Basically, take that and shut up. And that's what we get. We settle with for less than 2% of what it's worth. Less than 6% is the average of what our claims are worth. And we've got to make something work with that. Keeping in mind tino rangatiratanga is that overarching goal. Now, when it comes to dealing with local councils, in this country, the prevailing rule is local council is not the Crown, and therefore not obligated to uphold treaty principles. But if we want to do something, we have to deal with that local council, especially if we're iwi and we're split. We're not one big unified kingitanga or something like that, but that's Mauri, we're tribal. Trying to make that work on a settlement of $100 million and then splitting that 7 ways. I find it, those 2 models are good. How you've consolidated them down, you've come in from both ends of the extremes, as you're saying. I like them. I'm concerned about, and I know we talk about we've got to be able to have a say in what we do, but I'm frightened with this idea of that we might, certain hapu and stuff, we might split off and splinter off with such small resources that we have. Because I'll tell you, I've done research and stuff onto Section 33 of the Resource Management Act, and that talks about tino rangatiratanga and a way, it's a vehicle on how to give that to iwi. It's never happened in the 20 years that that Resource Management Act's been in action. They've never actually divulged or delegated their power or tino rangatiratanga to separate iwi entities. And the reason why, or the reasons why, there's many, is to do with not being sure with who they're dealing with. So it's about local councils and iwi actually forming relationships, strong binding relationships that endure, you know, which is a hard thing because the council gets voted out and you get a new council. The other thing is it's about transparency, and let's face it, a lot of our iwi and hapu have made a lot of mistakes, and you get these things coming through with the kohanga reo stuff and all of that stuff. It's just doesn't look good, and it's hard for a council to trust you when this sort of stuff's going on. So if we're going to go off on separate splinters and stuff, I highly recommend that we start investing in some real leadership, trusteeship, stuff like this, you know, so that we've got the right people leading these sort of things. Because what you're going to go up against, it's going to reflect on everyone, no matter what. Even if we want to think that we're separate, we're still all together in this. And so, yeah, I guess that's all I've got to say for now. I hear what everyone else has to say.
Cool. Thanks, Brent. Just on the aspirations there and the values and principles, yeah, that's good that we can look at other, like the United Nations framework, and then make sure that's incorporated and included in that too, so it's reflective in separating whole water out and health, and mental health has been the one that's been raised a lot. You know, we should be looking at that on its own. So that's good to have that feedback. In terms of the process, yeah, we understand it's been a Crown process up to this stage. We've had to come together to meet their requirements. Now it's not a Crown process, they're not in the room, it's our process and how we want to make it look. Whether we divulge some of this authority and power down to that hapu, that rōpū level, gives them that tino rangatira mana motahake to do that. And it's our job as tātou tātou to, when these councils come to us to say that, no, don't deal with us, deal with them, is to be that conjurant. As you see in the presentation, cultural redress, we cannot split cultural redress off because the Crown said this is one comprehensive settlement. At the kipro, they're only dealing with tātou tātou, they only see tātou tātou. They don't see the rōpūs, those at the ground level where it all we all know where it happens, at the ground level, not an entity that sits in high-rise buildings trying to control things. We want to make sure that those rōpū are empowered to make the decisions that they need to make that affects their members directly, rather than having a blanket policy across everyone, because sometimes that may not work because other areas have different focuses for different times. It creates that flexibility for those areas to have different priority sets, rather than having a generic priority across it all. But we do recognise there is benefits in that umbrella to create that collectivism, to have that force when you do go in front of the councils or front other entities, you have the backing of everyone behind you. Any further questions on aspirations, values and principles? It tends to be non.
Or was that a question or more statements?
Yeah. The representation rate issues. We currently have the 7 kāhui, and it's been our model that we've utilised through Te Tirawhaki in these times. We're proposing slight changes there. We understand page 16 on the booklet creates some bit of anguish amongst some members regarding certain hapu not listed. Remember, treaty settlement, as Brendan said, is hapu based. When we move to our next phase, we don't really need to focus exclusively on hapu. When we came through for the feedback, there's marae based representation as well. hapu-based representation. It's really up to the individual rōpū who come together to determine what that representation structure looks like for them, rather than it being told to, Crown policy filtering down, or stopping that to say that, well, you make the decision. You make how you want to represent yourself, but it has to be, fair, transparent, of course. It can't be just one particular grouping or small particular grouping taking ownership, taking control over it. It needs to be reflective of that particular rōpū. So rōpū representation, as we've put it there, is based on rohe and based on tipuna as a starting point to have those discussions. So those rōpū at home need to have those discussions amongst themselves. I know it's happening currently, to say, well, this is my tipuna, these are my areas of interest, come to an agreement, because that's why the dispute resolution process is in there. Potentially rōpū having conflicting interests over conflicting areas, we will need to run through that process in terms of representation. But we're all happy, seem to be happy. We got that strong feedback that that rōpū representation was a key way to go. It was kāhui. At the same time, we needed to retain both that rōpū and tātou tātou.
Just focusing on any particular the way we organise representation.
Kia ora tātou, Moana Henry. I suppose the presentation that we've heard today, and it was stated in that presentation, the importance of this kaupapa. So first up, I'd like to say that if you're allocating 30 minutes for question and answers, for that to be adequate, I would say it's inadequate. From my point of view, anyway. Anyhow, the other one would be that the time, I suppose, trustees being gagged, my word, around how their representation, how they can represent us when things are vetoed or they are embargoed. They get shortened spaces of time to actually consult, true consultation with who the cluster that they represent. And my cluster is Te Wairoa or Tāpukurau, cluster 1. And so from the time of receiving the booklet to make any submissions, they had 12 hours. 12 hours. And those 12 hours was from 7:30 at night to 7:30 a.m. in the morning. Inadequate. I suppose my question around representation approach was the process of representatives or adults on the adult number voting. So I think the trustees need to do some research around hapu representation, because I know in our cluster there's 46 plus hapu, and in the settlement process, these hapu were recognised, but under the clusters, there doesn't seem to be that friendly, or so I'm just, suppose, asking whether there will be any research done into the capacity of clusters, and that they actually be named somewhere because they've dropped off the record. Per se. So, yeah, I suppose that's my question around representation. Will there be any research done around hapu and recognition of hapu? And you said marae. My marae, and I read one of the quotes in this booklet here around, says, Wairoa is now very derelict. Fond childhood memories of the way Wairoa used to be have gone. The town is now mostly boarded up, blah, blah, blah. So some of our marae are derelict as well. Some of our they're still there, the landmarks are still there, and yet there's no recognition for my hapu anyway. So I'm just wanting to know those things remain, those memories still remain, so why is there no recognition? Jordan?
Okay, cool. Just addressing, I guess, your full point about the content of the booklet. The booklet it is a very difficult discussion to have at the trustee level about the content of the booklet, and having to reflect and come to an agreement on the content of a booklet requires a bit of research and work from the trustees themselves to make sure that what's reflected in the booklet is a fair discussion of what was had at the trustee level. So whether a trustee cannot come to the table with the idea of what their particular cluster or kahui is after in terms of a final representation model is up to that particular trustee to bring that discussion. So the booklet is not finally set, it's only a mere snapshot of where things are at currently, and moving forward we're looking for that from our members to come to that feedback to us, to provide us with information. This is only a step. This isn't a final model. We're not voting on these today. We're not voting for them in March. There's more work to be done. So to produce something for our members to look at, we need to take that reference and take a snapshot of where the work is of the trustees. If a trustee needs to go back to their members, this is what the opportunity is now. That's what they'll be doing over the next 2 to 3, 4 months, is going back to their kahui, discussing the content, discussing what was discussed, and provide their feedback through, whether it's individually or through that kahui. In terms of the in terms of the representation of the hapu on page 16, that's always been an anxious issue, but we've inherited that. It wasn't Tātou that came up with that particular hapu structure, it was Te Tira's times, and Te Tira was restrained by Crown policy. My point being now is that we've moved away from, got rid of Crown policy. It's up to the individual rōpū now to tell us what that structure looks like. We're not telling you what it's going to be. We're wanting you to get together. How many hapu, how many marae you want to be in that area, it's up to those individual rōpū to make that decision. Now, is it Tātou's job to go and research that for you? Or is that the rōpū's job to research that themselves? Okay? This is the point. Whose job is it to tell someone who is who? It's not me to tell you who you are, it's for you to tell me. And how you want to look, whether it's marae-based or hapu-based, that's a determination that those rōpū need to make themselves. Have that discussion themselves. Not wait on someone else to tell them who they are. Hey, kia ora.
Sadly, a lot of hapu have been omitted. I will say that. Even in that I thought. So an annual my way. But that was how it was voted on. You know, we came out 80 years. So what it is.
Use a mic. Use a mic. Can't hear.
Oh, so what Kenny is suggesting is that those kahui who are concerned about hapu missed out in the booklet should be talking to their kaumātua of their cluster.
So I hear what you're saying. I just want to know what kind of mana do our kahui kaumātua have around their voice in what we have current, and whether that is listened to, because I don't know where these new models that you've got have come from, because when it first started, back in August, the first rollout, you had 3 quite different looking models, and okay, you've consulted, but something's dropped off along the way. But around the tikanga and even the te reo aspects of where do those come from? Is that from our kaumātua kahui kaumātua? Are they consulted around those things as well?
Yeah, just for this separation, what we came back to in August were concepts, they weren't models. So to clarify, those are high-level concepts about, on a spectrum, what it could look like, from full devolution to full amalgamation. They were just conceptual ideas. These are the 2 models here that came from the feedback. We need to narrow down the spectrum, because that's quite a broad spectrum and a broad discussion. Now, to get to a single recommendation or a single model, we need to bring that conversation in towards a point that we all can agree on. And quite frankly, if we can't agree on that point, and then the special resolution about the final arrangements will fail. So to having a discussion, you need to start wide to then start to bring it in. The trustees realise that we may not get to one single model, one single aspect. We would need then to go back to our members to ask them to make that decision. If these two particular, we couldn't agree on one particular model after these two, we would potentially need to put these two models up for members to vote on as the final model. Now that's to me as we've gone through a process of trying to narrow it down, providing our members the opportunity to participate in this to get to that final aspect. Now whether a particular rōpū wants to be grouped by hapu or marae, that's their decision. But though there shouldn't be a blanket decision over or blanket across everyone, one rōpū may be favouring that, but other rōpū may not go that way. It gives them the best opportunity to feel how they're best represented. Whether it's marae, because marae came through quite strongly. In terms of marae representation, we did look at marae representation, we did look at hapu representation. They found that 40 odd marae, 200 odd hapu, trying to create a governance structure for those. You're seeing here what's happening in Waikato Tainui, they're trying to narrow it down a bit. It just gets too big, too large, too cumbersome. So that's why the rōpū type structure kind of prevailed, and is currently what we're recommending going forward.
Is this a question, Morna?
I suppose my question is now is why is the trustees choosing to ignore the evidence from the Office of the Treaty Settlements around the numerous requests that have been made to list the hapu within cluster 1 specifically?
So through the select committee process, there was opportunity to add hapu to that. We strongly fought for that and are still fighting for the inclusion of hapu into the bill, which is in the Crown process. That's the Crown process. Crown came up with that process and they say, well, these are what the hapu you went out with in deed of mandate. These are the hapu you've included so far. You've signed a deed of settlement now and initialed a deed of settlement. We can't change that because you've initialed it. So that's a Crown process. We don't have control over that. We can always put forward what our members want, and that's what we've done. But the Crown is never going to take into that because they've got their rules and regulations, Crown law and all that stuff that they abide by. But in saying for us, after going forward in this, what we're proposing here, you can do what you want. It's basically back to the rōpū to make that decision, and there's no Crown process involved in that. Two separate processes. One we can change, one we can't. And it's unfortunately how we've inherited that. Tātou has. It hasn't been our doing. It's been previously with the tira when they negotiated the settlement. So we were trying our best. It's even getting to the point where the Crown particularly might want us to change our trustee to match the deed of settlement. That's how much they've come back to us and say, well, your hapu that are included in your trustee need to match what's in the deed. And we're saying, no, we don't need to do that. How we determine ourselves is our determination, not Crown's now. They're out of the room. This conversation we're having today going forward is about us together, was it not? Not what the Crown thinks, and the Crown tells us what to do. Okay.
Tēnā koutou ko Stacey ki rapa tōku ingoa, tōku hononga kei raro I te maru o hine manuhiri. My pātai is regarding if a rōpū chooses to leave this group here, how do they actually get quantified in terms of their settlement outside of this group, knowing that we have so many missing hapu, we have so many missing marae, and therefore so much representation missing? How are we going to quantify what portion of the settlement they get regardless of whether it is a percentage or not?
Good. That's one of the questions we've got in the booklet there, is about how do you value a particular individual rōpū's value of the settlement. We've asked the question, or the assumption is it's equal. 7 divided by whatever That's what it should be. But
Oh,
is that
I
fair?
looked on calculators,
yeah.
around about 88 million we're
Yeah.
looking at, so we're looking at about $12 million a piece,
But-
divided
but-
by 7.
yeah.
So, but does that fairly justify
Yes. That's the next point. Is that fair? Is equal fair? In some respects, it may be not, because if a particular rōpū has a larger population or larger affiliation, it has a larger area, and it has a greater treaty breach. You know, we've got to take these factors into consideration when looking at that particular size of a particular rōpū's settlement package. And that's not only just for the assets, it's also relates to distribution of income from what's still held with tātou tātou. That needs to be reflective of that as well. So these are one of the key questions that trustees need our members to come back to us with feedback on. Are there experts in this field of analysing comprehensive settlement? What we received, one single comprehensive settlement. The Crown never individually valued each cluster's part in that settlement. It just said no, it can't do that. It just valued one Te Tira Whakiemi, one area, one Te Rohi o Te Wairo. Now it's up to us. Are we willing or capable of going down a process of doing that? Valuing it with each individual rōpū. Can we do that? What measures are we going to use to do that? What's the formula? What's the rationale? It's always the equal one is the easiest way to go down. But is it the right way? So with you understand the independence rōpū process, it came out of, be honest, it came out of a strong from Rongamauahine Nai Tanaka tō wanting to be independent. We all know the history regarding Rongamauahine and Ngāti Kaununu. They want to, go on because they want their own mana motahake. They don't want to come back to tātou or come back to ask permission to do things. You understand the process there? It gives them that, or gives any rōpū, because if the trustees said, well, we'll give it to one, we need to make sure that it's fair and transparent for all. They can all have the opportunity to go through this process. So if a particular rōpū wanted to, they exercise this process at a set period of time, because we've got to give tātou some assurances going forward into the future. We're going to have this independence process popping up every 2, 3, 5 years. That doesn't help tātou inform its investment strategy, because if it needs to invest 20, 30 years out, and they can't have people deciding to jump on, jump off. But having that at the front, we all recognise we came together in 2009 at Rangiahua to do this journey. It's just natural that we have that same question again: who's still on the journey into the next phase? And we've completed one. Now we're going on a next journey.
So there was some of the unease that I was feeling about that withdrawing sort of thing. So the point that I was trying to make is these settlements are not fair. None of it's fair. Well, what we've lost to what we're getting back is just rubbish. But we have to deal with what we've got.
Yeah.
So my concern is you've got it valued, rangatiratanga, you've got that down there with economic. In the economic quadrant, because that's how it rocks in the Western world. That's not how it rolls in Te Ao Māori, but that's how it rocks. That's where we get our power, is how much money we've got in the bank. That's how we get our clout. That's how we get our go forward. My the big concern that I have is maybe money isn't going to be the same value in the future. Hey, if you start looking at it with this Bitcoin and stuff, technology's moving forward. This is just looking at history. This is how things have always been. The goalposts have always changed. And are they changing? And are they throwing a little bit of money at us to watch us fight amongst it while they go and shift those goalposts while we're not looking? Look at the John Key trying to change the flag. That was a constitutional thing, what he was up to. While they're doing settlements on one hand, and on the other hand they're doing other stuff. I think we just need to be aware of what's going on with that sort of stuff. Rather than concentrating on what can we get out of this as individuals, as whānau and stuff. Let's try and make work this bum deal that we've got. Let's try and turn it into something that will get back what we really lost. But that's just That's my whakaaro anyway.
Yeah, the settlement system, your starting point is how can we leverage it, utilise it. You know, money versus mana, you know. And it's not about maybe not the money, maybe the mana, because you know Crown's told you got to go and talk to this particular group now. That's not having money; it's because you have a influence.
I'm just looking on page 17, and there's a bullet down the bottom there that says all registered adult members of Tātou Tātou can vote on the exit deal, which means ensures transparency. Now, if you're a cluster, one of the 7 clusters, and everybody gets to vote whether you exit or not, that there doesn't it's taking away or disadvantaging your cluster if you're, you know, if you're one in terms of numbers or registered beneficiaries. Is that what we call them? Is that what we actually call ourselves? What do we call ourselves?
Members, not beneficiaries.
Landlords?
Yeah, members. That clause is not to the exit, it's the deal. 2 separate things. There's a trigger clause there where the members with that particular rōpū exits a trigger clause and has a negotiation, then has a vote themselves. So that particular rōpū, if they wanted to exit, that rōpū only has that vote amongst themselves, not amongst the whole Tātou Tātou membership to say whether that particular rōpū can exit. So rōpū's independence is down to the rōpū themselves to decide that. But in terms of the settlement, because we stuck with, was this one comprehensive settlement that came together, we all voted on that together, the assets and that, we would need to house that process formulated in terms of a particular rōpū taking certain assets. Because we all voted together to receive the asset, the assumption is that then all members need to vote on whether part of the asset is devolved.
Thanks.
So Kenny's just wanting a little bit of clarification over here.
At the Kaumātua Hui, we went through that particular question, and it was put to us that if you wanted to pull away from Tātou Tātou, you had to get 75% of the total of everyone in each cluster. That was the idea we were given. Was that right, Hene? Hey, that was the thing that we were given, the whakaaro to the kaumātua, that. And that's why we sort of had a bit of an argument, because I said to Walter, hey, I got a bit in the Whakaki Lake. I can come and vote for Whakaki. So, yeah, and, you know, he thought it was a great joke, but I'm sorry, I'm just as confused as you, because we took it that's what it read, as it reads, eh? It reads that. It says that 75% of Tātou Tātou can make a vote on your exit, and well, that's what I come to understand.
Package, the deal, yeah. Not the exit itself. So the percentage-wise, we're still under negotiation. We're looking at what's the science behind the different percentage levels in terms of triggering the exit, and what percentage will be required of that particular rōpū to make that binding on that particular rōpū. But it's just the deal itself, the contents of the assets. That's the key that we need to work through, and that's why it's highlighted in grey in the booklet. What process is around that, taking assets from Tātou Tātou and then giving it to another rōpū entity. There's some legal requirements and legal understanding there to make sure that we've got our boxes all ticked and squared there. We can't give assets over. There's some tax implications, because we never negotiated any tax implications with the Crown if we were to devolve any assets to another group. There will be tax to be paid. Now, is that wise to spend treaty settlements on giving it back to the Crown when we've got it from the Crown? Yeah, so we need to make mindful of that step to make sure it's structured in such a way to make sure that there is no tax implications. It's done with the most important aspect of is looking after that settlement package we received in the beginning, to make sure we're not spending and wasting it like in that. But in saying it's the members themselves need to vote on the package, not the exit. 2 separate concepts. Exit is to the rōpū. They decide to go, kei te pai. We understand that's their right to have that make that decision. But in terms of the assets, we collectively receive this as one. Is it right for everyone get to vote on that collective asset? Could be, 12 mil, yeah. Yeah, 12, if it was 12 mil, if it's divided equally, we would, is that for everyone to vote on that, to take the 12 mil, because we all received it as 100 million. Is it everyone's decision now to say, okay, Kate the Pai, you've gone through a process, we understand that Rōpū wants to be independent, then are allowed to take a certain proportion of the settlement. So that's still to be worked through.
Kia ora, my name's Rupini Amato, I'm with Hene Manuhiri. Just in regards to what we've just heard today, would Tātou therefore look at an independent body to assess different rōpū and what their assets and that encompasses and the cost of that, and then a separate entity looking at that rōpū and the grievances they've had through to get to this claim? Is that a possibility in regards to this principle of because we have to admit that there are rōpū that want to be independent. So when you're talking about the fairness and do we look at assets among that rōpū, would that be a possibility for the Tātou Trust to have independent advice around those rōpū? And in doing so, you could probably do the whole of our area and all rōpū to assist when coming to those types of decisions?
Yeah, no, definitely going to involve some kind of independent advice. What type of independent advice do we need to engage is still up for discussion, and whether we will look out there at other PSGs and see what they've done in terms of this field if they've gone down this track. There is probably no expert in Wairoa or no expert that can value that, because one particular rōpū may have one expert, another rōpū may have a different expert who then could conflict.
But then that's not independent though, eh?
Yeah, but of the term, yeah.
Looking at that type of process, then I would expect somebody outside of Wairoa, with no affiliations, who doesn't know the history, because to me then they have a more fair view of everything.
Yeah, definitely outside advice is good in this when it's dealing with ourselves. But the point making is, you could get two outside experts and get two different opinions. Which outside expert do you use? What are the criteria for them to make sure that they understand? So there's a lot of trust into one particular.
Use three and then you find the middle.
Yeah, well, you have to do something like that to make sure, make sure it's fair and balanced, But it's a whole process to go through, isn't it? It's a lot more time, lot more expense to go down that process. But if we need to have that conversation, undertake that, then we'll need to go down.
People waited. We've waited long. So waiting a little bit longer to get it right, I'm pretty sure we'd consider that. Really?
Yeah. Yeah, we could work something out. It's not a.
Devolving funds and how that could actually lose money around. Ooh, we're electric. You can actually lose funds around, it kind of sounded what you were saying, it's a bit like lotto. You can win lotto, but if you try and carve it up, then you'll get hit in the pocket.
Yep, exactly.
So why wouldn't we actually, what Rupini is saying, is build something around, protect that. And there must be ways of doing it. I'm not an accountant, but there must be ways of stitching that up or ring fencing that so that type of thing doesn't happen. So whatever happens, whatever members agree to, that is already set in place and there's some protection.
That we've got some clever experts amongst ourselves even about how to structure it properly, but it needs to be structured in such a way that minimises that impact. Yeah, so if we don't do that from the outset and everyone understands what those limitations are, and then that may restrict on what you receive and what type of benefit you can derive if the particular structure is set in place to minimise tax implications. Cool. So that was touching on representation independence process, a little bit there with the models 1 and 2. You understand, just moving in with model 1 there particular with consolidated assets. Here is that the Tātou owns the asset, but that doesn't say that if a particular rōpū has an interest in that asset, that it can then appoint, say, directors, kaitiakis, It's more kaitiakitanga over the asset rather than having ownership of the asset. Whereas in Model 2, it's more focused on who owns the asset. Ownership equals mana motahake in Model 2, whereas Model 1, it's through kaitiakitanga. And I understand that principle is collectively owned, but if that asset falls within your area of interest, you'll be able to exercise your mana motahake through appointing directors, appointing liaisons with government agencies.
Kia ora whānau, ko Mate Williams taku ingoa. Te hapu mākoro. Hene manuhiri te rōpū. I'm just going to say it. I like the, I'm going to roll with the whakatōpū model. I like that model, and that's because, I may be here now, but it won't be long and I'll be gone. So I'm looking into the future. I bought my mokapuna here today, one of 35, and that's just that line. I'm not getting into the greats, but he's written down some notes. And I just had a look across there at his notes, and the first one up the top there is keep asset. I think it's important. I was actually blown away when I looked across, because I did say tell him, please take some notes. And that's his first kōrero right up the top of that page earlier on today, keep asset. And I've got to tautoko that, because that's what I'm saying. Model 1, whakatōpū, all of us in this room ain't going to be here long other than these little babies. So what I'm saying is we are guardians of this treasure. We don't own it, it's not ours. It's ours to assist, put in place for the future benefit of tamariki mokopuna. That's these babies sitting in this room today. And that's where I'm coming from. Our tupunas never got this damn chance. Never ever was it in their window. It's in our window now, it's in our sight. And I would like to see something done for this. So I'm saying, keep all our assets together as one, under the tātou o te wairoa, under that umbrella, and that the profits from the investment of those settlements then be distributed to the relevant rōpū. And I'm just going to leave it there.
Cool.
And that,
Kia
ora whānau.
Excellent feedback. Mōna ki.
I just want to talk to Model 2.
Cool. Model 2.
Kanorau. I think there needs to be, it says diversified ownership. I think there needs to be more information around that, what that looks like, what that could look like.
Yep.
And as somebody, I couldn't make a call today which one I would favour on the information that's been provided today.
Yep.
So that would be my ask: is can we have some more information about that?
Yeah, there are some detail. Model 2 is quite complex. It is got a share. Tata has its share, but also the rōpū have their share within an asset holding company. It's up to the individual rōpū about how much they leave into that asset holding company. Then the income derived from that asset holding company will be proportionate to whatever the amount that the rōpū leave in. So it's quite complex. It's trying to work a way where there could be a best of both worlds in there, the consolidation, ownership, as well as having that authority and control over a portion of the asset. So that's in a nutshell, whereas the Model 1 is it's all held centrally.
kia ora. So in relation to Model 2, there is still no Crown involvement within that at all?
There's no Crown involved. Once we've got the deed of settlement, third reading, we're all assent. Crown doesn't. We don't involve the Crown anymore.
So
Crown's not involved.
if we're looking at something like, as an example, fisheries or forestry, are we also making the assumption that we as an iwi, that we as a settled hapu, we as clusters are actually professional enough as well as able to manage natural resources such as those forests?
Yeah.
So as an example, at the moment, Tūhoe themselves have just settled with theirs. They're phasing out Crown involvement, but it also means that the Crown is actually involved in the care and maintenance, therefore the reduce of costs is upheld that way. Outside of this particular model here, has there also been a discussion, or is there any information regarding perhaps those hapu and those people that have not actually been involved with te tira me tātou that might actually form and whakapapa outside of these particular negotiations and discussions, such as those that are mate aone, they live noho manene ki waho o te rohe pōtai, you know, but they are still kahungunu, they are still te wairoa. You know, their whakapapa is still as good as mine. But if they live outside are they actually entitled to seek assistance from their clusters under these models? And therefore, will their pātai or will their tono be upheld because they don't actually live within the rohe?
Yeah, no, that's definitely. We've got one particular one, quite proud of it. It's Ngāi Tamatea, you know, the history about Ngāi Tamatea and them having to be moved away to Waihotahi there. So we're in discussion with Ngāi Tamatea regarding, you know, how can they be incorporated back in within tātou. You know, those sort of, but there are those that may have gone through that process as well. And we just need to make sure that we have inclusive all of those ones in discussions. But those discussions have to happen too at the rōpū level. Yeah, that's where, you know, at the rōpū having that discussion with who are they, you know, where are they, who connects to them, who are the tipuna that, you know, bring them all together. Because at the end of the day, it's the rōpū that are the ones who are on the ground doing the work. Tātou are there to assist them, but we don't want to be, tātou doesn't want to be overstepping into rōpū's areas and setting their priorities. The rōpū have the mana motahake about what they want to set on the ground. Whereas the tātou job, whether it is to support that, making deliver their benefits to the members that whakapapa to that rōpū.
I have concerns, to be honest with you, on this particular model, and my concerns are in regards to investment. And if we're looking at how that would that investment be actually done outside our area? And if so, then what? Because, you know, when we look at investment, to me, that's kind of a gamble. You're going to gamble with this money. Hopefully, you're going to make a profit to bring back. That's how I see it. My concern is those gambles. And the implications on our whānau. The other concerns I have are conflicts of interest within our own rōpū, in particular around investments and how that looks. So when we're looking at these investments, what types of plans have we got to ensure that those profits actually funnel back to our people, especially the ones living back at home, to help them? And also when I read the material, it talks about training and employment. How does that plan look for our people back home? Because they're the ones that actually need it. So what does that involve? How much resources are needed to achieve our ultimate goal? And when we're looking at investments, would that investment also be put back into our community to supply? And to me, when we're talking about the councils, if we're a big employer, then the council will end up listening to us. And I think that's ultimately where we need to be. And also when we're talking about councils, we can put our own people there. We know they're only there temporarily, and if we get organised and if we do it properly, we can actually put our people into those councils and key positions to help our people who are failing right now. So what plans are there in store to help our people further themselves?
Yeah, so basically this is the process we're running through now, is determining how the structure will look for then that to occur, whether it's through Model 1, Model 2, an independent rōpū process. By determining what that structure is, we'll then set out who's dealing with particular area. Because tātou exists, because the rōpūs exist, they'll need to come to some kind of arrangement about who's in charge and who's doing particularly what. The Rōpū, obviously, we have that connection on the ground with the people. We have those connections with the councils, because they're the ones that are doing the day-to-day stuff. And the tata need to be there to support that, not do that themselves. If they're doing that themselves, then they're overstepping the mark of the Rōpū, who are the ones who set the priorities for what's happening on the ground in terms of economic development, social, health, all the well-beings that we've put up here. They're the ones which will set those priorities and deliver those priorities. Other iwi and other entities do this centrally, back at a main entity, that then push it out to other entities. Now with Model 2 there, we would devolve some of that responsibility down to the Rōpū setting those priorities. But at the same time, we understand that they need capacity and capability. They need to have the right people in the right place to make those right decisions at the Model 2. Whereas Model 1, it's all centralised back and the pool of people is bigger. So you can pull from a bigger pool of people to be make sure you got the right people in the right place to make those investment decisions. But it is with Model 2 is a lot more riskier because you're devolving some of that, you're devolving that responsibility back to that the whānau to do, and hopefully that the whānau will do that. There is a lot of risk in doing that, and that's what Brendan's point is. You know, it's a bit risky to do that. Have we got the right people? Are they in the right place? Are they governance trained, investments? They have all the right skill set to make sure they're doing the right decisions. Whereas back centrally, you can easily look at that and easily manage it because it's a small group of people holding that. Whereas at the Rōpū, it's quite lower down. You don't quite get to see that transparency. So it is a risk, and we understand that. So it's one of the areas we're going to need to explain to our members about the differences between the two models. You know, we don't want this giving a certain asset over and then they fritter it away. You need to put some kind of structures in place to make sure that, you know, as Annie said at the front there, let's look after it. Yeah.
My big concern actually is around forestry, especially around health and safety within the forestry, yep. The amount of deaths of workers in the forestry industry, and I want to make sure that when we do this, that those people are safe, to be honest with you, yep. and those people are our people. Mm. So it would be good to have some assurance when we're talking about the forestry and the industry that we undertake, and potentially the rail line, if that happens, that's awesome for us, I reckon. But what provisions have we got set in place to ensure that those people working in the industry are protected? You know, if we're an employer, basically, so we've come with the litigation should something happen to one of those workers, and that falls on us as a people.
Yep.
So how was that plan evolving?
I'll hand it over to Tere. He's from work safety.
Kia ora, you're quite correct. There are a lot of deaths and accident-related fatalities within forestry. WorkSafe has that in terms of being the regulator. It's where I work when I'm not here. And I think the other part is they're piloting something up on the coast, trying to work more directly with iwi, because some of the Western and conventional ways are not working in terms of safety change behaviours that forestry workers should be taken on board. The other part is under the Health, Safety, Work and Employment Act, there's a requirement upon what they call PCBUs or agents. And if iwi were to take that on and become PCBUs, there is an obligation on them to provide all the health and safety requirements of workers in that industry.
No, Brendan.
Hey, come in.
Otherwise you're talking to yourself.
So that was that point that I was making about your quadruple bottom line. You just hit it on the head there, my bro. So you can put it under a social box and say, oh, look, we've got our whānau employed. Tick. Hey, but just as the bro pointed out, or if they're employed in a job that's going to get them killed, where's the health and safety thing in that, you know? And that's why I'm saying you can't really bundle that up in the social sphere, you know? It has to be separated out a bit.
Yeah.
But
it all cuts the box too, because, you know, it's forestry we want to be in terms of environment. It's lash and then the environment affects
they all intersect.
Yeah,
they all intersect. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying, you know, the dangers of bundling everything up into social, because they never had a cultural aspect of things. That was all under social, you know. But we know for sure, hey, you got to take that cultural out of there because we're not all one culture, you know. So just some things to think about.
Back, are we focusing just purely on money for these investments? Is there those other well-beings we need to take into consideration, all the well-beings?
Right.
And that includes when you set up your statements of investment priorities and objectives to make sure the well-beings are incorporated.
Right.
Aroha, mate. So I would, just in regards to the forestries, I understand the PCBU and the health and safety aspects of that industry. I would like us to be the leaders, actually, of that industry. And I would like to see us as the good employers that actually are working collectively to produce great outcomes for our people and make sure that they've got homes. You know, I'm from Freetown. My whānau is still living in tin houses and just on dirt floors. And I remember that growing up, and you know, you had to get when we were in copper things, when you put your feet in, and copper's all kind of all of that. And the long drops, you know, all that kind of stuff. So it would be good to get our people in a safer environment, in a healthier environment.
Providing, we've did some governance training this year, and the best thing to do is to create more disposable income for families. That by doing that, you create them given an ability to take care of all those kind of aspects when you increase the income levels. So that's the key to get them out of those type of sectors is to make sure the employment's there, the jobs are there. But they need to be in those sectors, you know, are safe, they're not affecting the environment. But at the same time, we're in control of those processes rather than passive investors, you know, where we contract someone else to do the work in, which was currently happening with the forestry. You know, the forestry is we've got Patanami there and Wharerata was Junkanisho. You know, they're the ones who own the forest, the trees. We just a passive income recipient of that. Now, we want to move into the sector where we're active, we're partners with them, so we can influence their logging practices and that to make sure that, you know, they're buying to a higher level by setting the benchmarks a lot higher than what they are normally accustomed to. Own both, yeah.
The food's here, Leon.
Yeah, I just want to see on this side. I think everything seems to go over there. I want to make sure we get this side over here.
They love it. They love it. Yeah.
Cool. Oh, good. Yeah. We'll give you the opportunity, though. You have the opportunity. But
Kenny wants to bless the food. Which one?
Just remind them of
yeah, feedback. Yeah, someone. Yeah.
Kia ora tātou ko Hamilton tangi ora tōku ingoa. He uri hau ngō hene manuri me rongomahoni hoki mai e ngā ropu katoa. Like I said last time, I want to congratulate you on the mahi today. This is an extremely hard and difficult thing to navigate through with and maintain probably your your countenance and to be,
sanity.
Yeah, probably there too. I just want to acknowledge that this is really, really, again, like I did last time, how the complexity of it all. Yeah. It's really tough and challenging, and the whole, what the settlement opportunity represents isn't even much money. Yeah. You know what I mean? And splitting it up more makes it more challenging too. Yeah. We all have to do our homework, whānau. We have to look at things like these social outcomes, but everything we're talking about has to be funded by a dividend. And that's got to get working. We've got to prioritise, and unlike some other iwi, like the one we're sitting at the moment, the assets were returned and they were instant, had value attached to them, and they were making pūtea on day one. Tainui's had 20 years of experience with this. We're not going to see the outcome of our decision making now until another 20 or 30 years. Even now with 72,000 stakeholders or iwi members, very little ends up in the pockets of the people. That's the nature of the challenge. And even I work there, and even with building a massive inland port on that side, even with the theoretical clout that is held. It's taken 20 years to develop that. 20 years of relationships, of making mistakes, of having wins as well. But I mean, obviously, I just want to acknowledge, have lots of ideas, but I really want to acknowledge the complexity in doing this well, and landing on a really good outcome for everybody. We're not going to see benefits for a long, long time. Many of us are going to be gone, and like our whaia said, it's about a mokopuna, and that's how every iwi are looking at it. But from an iwi, even from a social perspective in terms of jobs, those are very hard. Our people themselves have got to want them. They've got to be ready. They've got to jump off those things that prevent them from getting mahi. We all know what those things are as well. They're social things, and I'd love to see our people raise above and to become, to instill that mana motuhake, what you're after, or tēnā rangatiratanga. I can see the benefits of everything from independence through to working together. I can see them all. Some of our iwi have been burnt in the past by things that haven't gone their way, and have been unfair for us. But creating 7 management entities with boards, and then we have consultants come and trying to pick our eyes out with every turn. Honestly, I see it daily. We just have to be really careful, and again, we're not going to see the fruits of anything for another 20 years. We have to, us continuing to get nothing moving forward out of this is not going to change our lives right now. No. We have to think about how we're going to make that work for us in the future, so that we can do what's right for our people.
Only the successful treaty settlements have taken what little they've received. They know it's not fair, but it's the Crown process, and how they leveraged it to their benefit. It's not about how much money you may have, but those relationships, about going forward into partnerships, those sort of things.
I think too, we've got to be careful about. Sorry, but where does the Pākehā whakaaro and frameworks begin and the Maori ones end, or how do they merge together? Where's that grey space? Because we can't always we are in that world, I understand that, but we can't forget who we are in the process, and we have, I know we can't separate out some of those Pākehā whakaaro that we have that are a part of us, and I acknowledge my Pākehā tupuna as well in that, but we got to be so careful with that, because
so it's a lifetime opportunity. And with that comes responsibility. Hapai. Kia ora. Okay. If there are no other further questions, just one more.
I just want to reiterate the sentiment over that side of the whare, and thank the trustees, and just Leon, to thank the trustees, who kauinga the kōrero, our kōrero, and come to a booklet, but I think we can only get better.
Yep.
And I suppose the analogy, there's no strength without sweat.
Exactly.
And we got to, we're going to sweat through this. And I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. Kia ora.
So we've got to start somewhere, and hopefully this is a good start to build on. Got to create a base. There's Tātou Tawhiti never existed before. We're creating those structures, creating that contact with our members, engagement, to make sure that you're all involved in this process going forward. There's no further. Anyone got any further questions? Just like to say that the questions in the back of the book are the key focus that the trustees are looking for your engagement on from page 23 onwards. So I think we've touched on most of those questions engaged in there. That's really going to help the trustees move forward in terms of developing that model and developing a singular model, but it also narrows some of the discussion we need to have with the individual rōpū. So take a look at that, fill it out, provide the feedback rather online, as I said, or through the Facebook. If you've got whānau members in Auckland, Palmerston North, Christchurch and Whakago, please contact them and encourage them to come along to the upcoming hui we've got tomorrow in Auckland, as well as next weekend as well. So we're trying to make sure that we get as many people along to get engaged. Yeah, an online survey. Yeah, online survey is a reflection of what's in the booklet. So, yeah. So just please provide your feedback. You know, we can always lead the horse to water, but someone has to drink it, the water. Ka pai. Kenny.
E iwa whakapainga wene kai hei o te tina na whangai a ki te wairua ki te taro o te ora, ko i koreiti te kai whakaora. Āmine.
Amen. Thank you, Whana. Thank you, Whana.
Now you have to sing